Hi all. Welcome to the first session of this Adobe Campaign Classic training. Myself, Siri Kumar. So I am familiarized with Adobe Campaign Classic, and I'll be facilitating you with the demo and the training sessions on the different components of Adobe Campaign. And I have close to 8 years of industry experience, and I've been working as a freelance trainer since a couple of years. Yes. So, these are some of the topics that the entire training will cover upon. So, the first one is how to get started with your Adobe Campaign Classic tool. Like, how do you install the client console, and we'll help you understand how you can log in and how you can understand the client console as such. When you see the UI of Adobe Campaign, you would understand where should I go to see some objects or some of the components that Adobe Campaign has. Where is it in my entire client console? So that is something that you will familiarize yourself with, and how to set up an email campaign. How do you set up a list? If you say, for example, I know there are like 100 folks that I want to target, and I have that in an Excel file. How do I put that into Adobe Campaign, and how do I target? So that is something that I think it will take a couple of sessions for you to get familiarized with this topic. And the second one that I would touch base upon is how do you manage the data and workflows here in Adobe Campaign. So how do you create a query? There are so many workflow activities which are meant for different processes. When I say I just mentioned, like, if you want to write an SQL statement, you want to query some of the folks from your database, then there is this query activity which will help you do that. And there is an update you want to do. You want to just change the email ID, you want to change the phone number of that particular customer. There is an update data activity where you don't have to sit and write the SQL statement, like say, hey, update table, where all these things you don't have to do. Just all of these are very easily translated into different sections. There is a drop down if you want to update or if you want to delete, you just have to choose. And there's a table selection, the targeting dimension selection, where you just have to go and choose the table that you want to update. And subsequently, there is a section where you will have the fields selection, and in the left hand side, if you are selecting the field, in the right hand side you can just update the value that needs to be updated with that particular customer. So along with these are just two examples of workflow activities. There is this activity which will help you remove the duplicate records. That is a deduplication activity. There is an activity which will help you directly take your contacts from the list. That is a read list activity. So there are so many much more activities that will come into picture. These are just the basic examples that I have given you of. And the next one is how do you validate your workflow results. When I say workflow results, the campaign, how my campaign has turned out to be. If I'm targeting 100 people, how many of them have received my email? Why the rest of the, say for example, 80 have received the email, why if 20 of them have not received the email? By what is the throughput, like what is the outcome, how many people have opened my campaign, which will help you design your next campaigns better. If you know, say for example, I triggered an email at 7 a.m. today, and there are like out of 180 people opened my emails, then 7 o'clock is the right time for you to target your customers, because you have seen much more open rates. If you say for example, you send it at 10 o'clock and you see only 50 of them have opened the email, you will be able to compare your different campaigns and analyze which timing is letting you know that the open rate of your emails are more. So that is something you will be able to validate after this training. And how do you send a scripted email delivery, how do you load a file, and what are these database cleanup workflows, and what does a workflow heat map mean? So all of these is something that will get covered. And when it comes, the third topic would be the data model. Like, how do you create a schema? How do you extend a schema? How do you set up a primary key for a particular schema? Now, how do you update the database structure? How do you import and export data into those particular schema? And what are input forms? What are navigational hierarchy? And what is with respect to the package deployment? So these are also some of the topics that will get covered. And one of the main important topic would be the JavaScript programming. How do you use JavaScript in your day-to-day activity, when day-to-day work, when you are using Adobe Campaign? How in your workflows? The thing is, Adobe Campaign is already set in such a way that you don't have to use any programming language to do your functionality. But say, for example, you have a very complex scenario which you are not able to just do it by dragging and dropping, then this functionality is also provided to the user, where they can just sit and write some piece of code and get the functionality up and running. So we have a JavaScript activity itself, where you just drag and drop and you write the code. And you will also understand what are the different kinds of calculations that one can do with respect to JavaScript, and what does an A/B testing mean, and what are the different best practices that one need to follow when they're using an Adobe Campaign, or what are the best practices that one need to follow when you are a client, when the client reaches out to you, the client reaches out to you and says, hey, this is how I want my setup to be done. You will be able to know which is the practice that I have to follow, which will yield the best results, which will yield in maintenance of the system in a very good way. So you'll also understand those best practices. And when it comes to different channels, you already know there is an email delivery. You will be able to set up your email channel. Similarly, there is this SMS also. There are this direct mail deliveries also that are provided by Adobe Campaign. You will get familiarized with that topic also. And what are the event triggered campaigns? Event triggered campaigns are basically subjected to the message center and web applications with respect to the landing pages and surveys, and a section of reporting, out of the box report. How do you read all of these reports? How do you understand these reports? How do you export those reports for your convenience? So these are some of the very major and basic concepts that revolve around Adobe Campaign. So today, let us get started with the basic concept of what is surrounded in Adobe Campaign Classic when it comes to the different processes that are involved and the different servers that are involved. So here, for each Adobe Campaign instance, you will have two instances available. One is the marketing instance. You can see this section is the marketing instance, and this is the mid-sourcing instance. So you just have to understand what is the difference between marketing and mid-sourcing, so that you will be able to familiarize, or you'll be able to understand how all of this entire functionality is happening, where you are setting up your campaign, from where you are taking your data, how is your data how is your deliveries being sent, and from where is our tracking data coming back to Adobe Campaign. So this is a very basic understanding that one needs to have, and that is why I have added this here, to understand the difference between a marketing instance and a mid-sourcing instance. When I say marketing instance, the word itself says that this is where all of your marketing functionalities are happening. When I say marketing functionality, it refers to how where you are setting up your campaign, how you are setting up your campaign, from where you are taking your data. So you can see this is the client console that we have. Client console is this Adobe Campaign tool that you will be using. And this section, you can see, this is where your marketing activities are happening. You're setting up your campaign, you're executing your deliveries, you're taking your targeting audience from your database. This is from database, where all of this marketing functionalities are happening here in this marketing instance. So the other day I showed you how you are setting up your workflow. How do you drag and drop your query and your delivery activity, and what happens when you execute the delivery? You go to a dashboard and see what is happening with my delivery. So once you execute the delivery, the deliveries that gets prepared goes to this mid sourcing instance. Mid sourcing instance is the place where your delivery actually gets executed. Either you send it in batches. Say for example, I'm targeting 1,000 people today, so that becomes a batch delivery that you can see here. Or you have a event triggered campaign that I was talking about, that is this message center. When I say event triggered campaign, say for example, you have gone and registered on a website and you're receiving a welcome email. As soon as you register, you will get a welcome email. Or you go and click saying that, hey, I've forgotten my password, so immediately you will get that email. So those are all the real time. RT means real time. So that is something that has happening in this RT instance. So the deliveries that you get sent goes to this mid sourcing instance and get delivered to the customer here. From the customer, you will know if they've opened my customer, if they've opened my email, if they've clicked upon the links that I've sent on the email. So all of that happens in this campaign tracking, and we get the feedback. Feedback is like the open rate, click rate, the response to my particular campaign from the customer will be collected as a feedback. At that comes back in terms of this delivery logs and tracking logs. Delivery logs is for me to understand if my email has gone to them or not. What is the status? Has it sent successfully? Did it fail? Or if it has failed, what is the reason? At what time this person was targeted? What is the date that the person was targeted? So all of those data will be present in the delivery logs. And when it comes to tracking logs, as the name itself suggests, it is to track how your customers are responding to your email. If they have opened my email, if they have clicked on any of the URL, how many times they have opened my email, how many times they have clicked on my URL, how many unique clicks do I have. So all of these kind of data will be in our tracking logs. So I'll move on to the next one. So there are different hosting models that the Adobe is providing. So there are three kinds of hosting models. One is your hosted, the other one is on-premise, and the third one is hybrid. So when I say hosted, Adobe is the one which is hosting everything. There are two parts here: the frontal servers that are present and the other LAN servers that are present. So Adobe is taking care of all of these. When I say frontal servers, you can see here the delivery processing, the tracking, and the MTS servers. So all of these are present in the frontal servers. And the server LAN, when you say the right hand side, the one that you see here, this is all with respect to your database, your application processes that are there, the workflow processes, and you can see this RDBMS, Postgres. So all of these, this means your database servers, and these are your application processes. So all of these will be hosted by Adobe. So it is on their server. When I say it is hosted on Adobe. So all of this is taken care by Adobe. This setup is called as a hosted setup, and when it is hosted, it means that it is on Adobe. When I come to on-premise, you will understand that the customer is hosting everything. The frontal servers, the servers, the database, you can see all different kinds of setup that they have. All of these will be hosted on the customer side. So this kind of a setup is called as an on-premise setup. The third one is an hybrid setup. You can see this is like distributed between Adobe and the customer. Say for example, Adobe in hybrid setup, all of these frontal servers will be hosted by Adobe, and the LAN servers will be hosted by customers. You can see the difference between all the three here. So both are hosted by Adobe in hosted, both are hosted by customer on premise, and in hybrid it is a combination of these where the frontal servers are hosted by Adobe and the customer will host the LAN servers. So if I want to give you an example of hybrid, say you have these banks, say for example HDFC, ICICI banks. So for banks, they're protecting their database is very, very, very important. So they will not let somebody else host the database models. So what they do is that time they usually would prefer to have a hybrid model where all of their database, all the application processes that they have will be hosted by the client itself to ensure more protection and to ensure smooth functionality. They would not want to share their database on different servers, so they would host it on their own server and then would want for the frontal servers to be handled by Adobe. So that is when the hybrid model will come into picture. Say for example, someone is starting up with Adobe Campaign on a fresh note, and they are okay with Adobe hosting everything. So that is when they go to a hosted model. So it totally depends upon the client's preference as to what kind of hosting model that they want. So, do you have any questions here? Okay. I'll take that as a no. I'll anyways share these PPTs with you, and also share the links that you can go through to understand the functionality in a better way. So now I will move on to the Adobe Campaign client console for you to understand the user interface of it. So can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So this is how your client console login would look like. And for you will have to set up your connections here. If you click on this URL, you will come to a place where you will set up your connections. So you'll just have to click on add and set a add on connections, and you can give like maybe this is your dev instance and the URL will be provided to you. Each instance will have its own URL which will help you connect to the servers. So you just have to click on OK, and then you will be able to give your username and password. This is how you set up a connection for your login with your client console. So when I said each instance has its own URL, there usually will be three instances. Two instances for sure any client would prefer. The three instances that I'm talking about is your dev, stage, staging will be your UAT, and it will be your production. So if you see, this will dev is one of your instances, UAT, and prod. So these three instances will be provided to any of the clients, but if they don't have dev, usually stage or UAT will be used as dev. So what are these three different instances used for? I am sure you would have basic knowledge of what is the difference between all of these three instances. When I say dev, this is where your development will happen. All the campaign development, if anything that you want to understand when you get the requirement from your client, you want to see the feasibility analysis of it, all of those things. Dev is the platform where you do that. It is for your the first place your campaign gets set up. So UAT and stage is somewhere where you do the testing. you move your code from dev to UAT, and in UAT you do your testing with respect to a replica of the actual data that is there in production. So, and the production is where you deploy. So all of these three instances will have its own separate URL, and you will have to set up your connections accordingly. So since this is a sandbox, I have set up a sandbox connection here. You can see this is the URL that is there for my sandbox. So I have set up that, and I'll click on OK. And I have the username and password here. And this is something that I've got once my operator is set up and the access has been given to me. So once I'm provided with that, I will be able to log in into the client console. So once you log in, this is how your home page would look like from your campaign console. So here you have different options here. If you want to see your campaigns, this is somewhere you have to go. When you want to see your customer profiles, this is the recipient one. You can just go and see what are all the objects with respect to my customer profile is present. The list, the service and subscriptions, the targeting workflows, the web applications, all of these you can see it in this section. And you want to see your system monitoring, this is where you come here. And when you want to see different kinds of reports, you usually will come here. But this is like the very minimalistic part here. We usually, someone who has not much knowledge, or a campaign manager who is just executing workflows, so that is when these objects are getting used. But an advanced user of Adobe Campaign would mostly deal with this explorer section. All of these objects are present here only. So according to the need of the user, he or she can come here and look into what is the thing they are expecting to be done. So I will just show you for today. I want you guys to just get familiarized with the UI, the client console, how it looks like, and where can I find what. There are different components in Adobe Campaign. So today I want you guys to be familiarized with what are all the objects present and where we can see this object. Using those objects or configuring those objects will come in a later stage, where you will be able to configure each and every object that I'm talking about today. But for now, I just want you to understand what is that object and where is that object present. Configuration, we will move on to that later. So, in administration, a person who has an admin access will be having view access or write access or read access to this particular folder. In this folder, most of the admin functionalities, whatever one needs to set up as an admin, will be present here. So, the first one that I would want to talk about is access management. The access management name itself says that it is nothing but a place where you set up your user. So if you go to operators is nothing but your user, like operator is equivalent to your user. Here you will set up the username and password for that particular operator. And what does operator group mean? Say for example, you have an admin group. I want to create a group of people who are admins. So I'll just create a group, and I will add all the operators to that group, and I will set that as an operator group. So that is what it means, that what is the difference between operator and operator groups. And when it comes to named rights, what is named rights? Named rights is not, as the name itself suggests, it is a set of rights that the user will be provided with. So you see, these are the out of the box named rights that one has. If I want to set up an operator as an admin, then I have to provide him with this right. If I want to provide someone with editing the folder access, then I can give them this right. If I want to give someone access to import the data, then I have to provide him with this right. So these are all, say for example, I want to create a workflow. Then I want to create a user who just has to create a workflow, then I will provide him with this right. So these are some of the default rights that Adobe Campaign is providing, and you will be assigning it to that particular operator. Now, when operator group is getting created, you just create an operator group, and you add the name right to that particular group. So if you see, these are the operators present, and this is the named right that I think all of this is having just operators. So you can also provide named rights. What is the actual action, or what is the actual right that these group of people are allowed to do? So how do you create an operator group? So eventually we will see that, but I want you to understand what is an operator group, what is the difference between operator and operator group, and what does named rights mean? Is that clear to you guys?
Yes.
Okay. So this is about the access management. Now let us come to configuration. So in configuration, there is this package management that you can see. Package management deals with the two kinds of packages. One is, like I said, you do your development from dev instance and you want to move that to UAT. So that is where your package creation, your package definition will come into picture. And installation of packages will come into picture when there are certain the Adobe features that you want to be installed in your client console. So that is when your different kinds of packages will come into picture. Say for example, you want to have an offer catalog installed, you want an offer engine. All of these are different kinds of packages that you install on your client console to use those functionalities. So you have to understand there are two types of packages that are involved in package management. One is for to movement of your code from one instance to another. The other one is for you to install the different functionalities that Adobe is providing that you can make use of. So that is with respect to package management. Now coming to data schemas. Data schemas are the place where you will see all the database connections that we have. Here there are some, if you see, if you just sort by the namespace, whatever is by NMS and XTK. Huh. NMS and XTK namespace, whatever you see, these are all the out of the box schemas that the Adobe is providing. So these are the when I say schema, it is just a view, what to say, a structural component, a blueprint of what the schema is holding. When I was showing you the in the demo, there is this Postgres database that we have in the marketing instance. I hope you remember that. So that database is not here. This is just a structure of the database that you have access to. So you have different kinds of schemas that are provided to you, out of which NMS and XTK are your out of box schemas, which means that you will not be allowed to modify them. This is something that Adobe Campaign is providing you by default. That is called OOB, out of the box. If you want to make any changes, all you have to do is extend your schema and give your own namespace to it. You will be allowed to make any changes to that. So there are different kinds of schema present. That the main schema will be a recipient schema, and what are the different schemas linked to that recipient schema, like delivery logs, tracking logs. And if you want to have your own custom schema, how do you set up that schema? So that comes in design of your data model, which will be covered in a different session. But I would want you to understand now what a data schema means and where do you find that object here in Adobe Campaign. Is that okay? Are you guys following what I have been saying?
Yes.
Yes.
Please stop me in case you have any questions, or if you're feeling like this is too overwhelming for you. But just please do stop me. I just don't want to rush into things thinking that you guys are understanding. So please feel free to stop me if you have any questions. So the third component that would come under configurations is your input form. Input form is how this entire you can see this UI, right? All of this is being done through a input form. So you will what say, for example, this is one container, this is another container, this is another container. So all of these classification, this look and feel of this instance, look and feel, the main comes into your campaign workflows and deliveries. So what is the look and feel? Where should you have your all the activities, and in which pane you have to the workflow space where you have to drag and drop. All of these setups are being done by input form. This is an important part, but this I not many of the clients would use this because input forms, these XTK forms that are being provided by Adobe in default. So you don't have to go and do manual or extra additions to what Adobe is already providing to you. But it would be nice for someone to understand what an input form is, provided the client wants an extra enhancement in the look and feel of what Adobe Campaign has provided, then only you would move on to the input forms. And as per my experience, input form, it is very less used with respect to some clients, but there are some say for example, there are some clients which want to make use of Adobe Campaign to a very extensive level. Then those clients would prefer modifications to the existing UI that Adobe Campaign has already provided. So that is when the input forms will come into picture. So we will deal with the creation of this in a whole other session, but I would want you to understand what an input form does. Input form helps you set up the look and feel of the objects that you have in Adobe Campaign. When it comes to images, this is a place where you upload all the images that you want to make use of. You want to see, this is how your CRM character image would look like, and this is what you will use in your form to show what a CRM connector should look like. So all of these are the different images. You can see this is a query image. I'll show it to you in the workflow space. So this is a key image which will help you understand, okay, the field that I'm referring to is a key. So all of the different images are uploaded here. These are out of the box. So in case you want to add any new, this is the place you will add it. Navigational hierarchy. So you see, this is a navigational hierarchy that you have in the left hand side. So which should come under what is the parent node, what is the child node, what is the root node. So all of these will be set will the left hand side, whatever you are seeing, is your navigational hierarchy. So navigational hierarchy is also very much similar to the input form, like when it comes to usage. The default ones that are provided by Adobe Campaign are the ones that usually gets used, and only in case extensive new navigational hierarchy is needed, that is when you come and create a navigational hierarchy. So for example, you have created this my company. This is a navigational hierarchy. In this, you want to add some folder. Whatever folder you want to add, you are doing here. These are all the ones that you are seeing are the out of the box Adobe is providing by default. So in case you want a new folder structure, that is when you create that in navigational hierarchy. So, and then the JavaScript codes, as I said, you can set up your library here. You can create a library, call this library. You just don't have to get scared seeing these kind of coding here. Extensive functionality that are created, that needs to be created, that can be done using a JavaScript library. You will have to just define what is this library going to do. This is nothing, plain JavaScript. I think even if you are very much familiarized with Java and C++, you will be able to relate to it, where you create a function. Functions are nothing but methods. You create your function. What is that method actually doing? You give your input parameters, output parameters. There are some functionalities that the function is giving and doing and returning back. So all of those will be in this JavaScript code section. So this JavaScript dynamic pages are on the similar lines. This will be used for your in case you want to have a web application or JSSP pages. All of those definition and configurations will be done here. And if you have any SQL scripts, the predefined filters that you want to set up, so all of those will be set up in this configuration. And you also have web application. Web application basically refers to the different landing pages that you can do, survey pages, like forms you can. So what you can do is you can set up a form here. You want to collect first name, last name, phone number of that particular customer. You just set up a form and you just add this link in your email delivery, so that the person who receives the email just clicks on the form, and if he gives us input and submits, so that will come back to Adobe Campaign and get stored. So that is done by via this web application. This will be used for your surveys, your landing pages. So this is the section that is getting used for. So in this configuration, the basic setup, the config setup, whatever is required for Adobe Campaign is being done in the configuration part of it. When it comes to platform and production, in platform, there are three major components that you need to know. One is options. Options are nothing but your global variables. So say for example, you can see here, this is something that is the value for this particular option. Wherever you are getting this option called, this is the value that gets picked up from this particular option. You can consider option as your global variable. For this particular instance, this is option is the global variable which will store your values. So the next one is enumeration. Enumerations are the one which will help you set up your drop down functionalities. What are all the different values that the drop down should provide to you? So for example, you have a city. When you have this form, there is this city that comes and you have a drop down that comes there. So what are all the different values that the drop down should provide? So this is for city and this is for company. So there are different enumerations present here, and each of which will have the value with respect to that particular drop down that you want to set up. So this is about enumeration. External accounts. External accounts will basically deal with your routing and your connection to external databases. When I say routing, from your Adobe Campaign, you have your email deliveries, SMS deliveries. So for all of these, a routing needs to be there. So that kind of setup you do here, do it here in Adobe, in this external accounts. One thing is routing. The other one is your external database. Say for example, you have an external database that you want to connect to. You want to have their schemas. You want to fetch data from that external account. This is where you set up that connection to that external account. You will choose the type as the external database. You will give what is the type of that, and you will give the server name, the account name, the password, and what is the database you are wanting to connect to. And once you do that, you will be able to, I think this connection is not set up properly, so you will be able to come here and see, okay, if something fails, You will, why am I not able to fetch the data? Then you will come to your external database and test the connection to know, okay, my connection is fairly established, or is my connection throwing some error. So all of these configurations we will go in detail when we actually come to this section, but I would want you to understand what are the different platform operations that are there. And the one that the major one is your message center. How to set up, what is a message center? How do you set up a real time message? How is the event getting triggered? When the event gets triggered, how is this template getting triggered? So all of those things we will understand more in the configuration classes. But what is a message center used for? As I said, this is something which is related to real time emails that are getting sent. You go to a website, you make you register on their page, then you just immediately get a welcome email. So that is something that is getting done here in message center. Say for example, you say, hey, I forgot my password. You click on that and then you get an email with whatever process that particular client has set up with. Some get emails, some get some links. So all of these emails are automated. The button that gets clicked on the website will be an event trigger for me, and my Adobe Campaign will understand when that event trigger is happening, what is the email that I have to send to that particular customer. So that is how that is what a message center is used for. How we'll use that, we'll see in that particular session. And if you want to see the technical workflows that are being provided by Adobe Campaign, this is in production. You can just come and check what are the technical workflows. So if you see, these are all the out of the box workflows that are provided: database cleanup, tracking. So all of these things will run every day to ensure the data cleanup is happening, the tracking data is coming back to our database. So all of these, there are some important technical workflows that will go in detail, but this is where your technical workflows will be. So I hope now you are very much familiarized with the objects that are present in Adobe Campaign. What are all the objects that we'll be touch basing upon, and where to find a particular object. So this is what something I had planned for today. So I'll just leave this forum open for questionnaire now for a couple of minutes. I want to understand what you have understood out of all of these, or if you have any questions. Sai and Pranali? Pranali?
Yeah, actually, I just have one query. What is use of that delivery management object?
Delivery management, once you execute your deliveries, you will be able to see all the deliveries that gets executed. And also there is something called typology is a very important concept when it comes to delivery configuration. So all of those typology setup you will be able to do here. You can see creation of that typology, rules typology. So all of those can be done here. And when it comes to non-delivery delivery management, you will just be able to set up some rules with respect to your deliverability. So all of these will be part of this delivery management, out of which this typology management is a very important one. You should understand what is the difference between typology rules, and what are the different types of rules that you can set up, and how these rules will be incorporated at your delivery level.
Okay.